It is April 15th. We're chilling here in the garden. Several of the hens, well, quite a few of them. And they're sort of looking at me, expecting me to do something because I'm holding something. But yeah, for the most part, they're just doing their patrol and having a good time doing it. And I'm working on some goofy projects, having a bit of fun today. I could point some things out, you know, what's in front of me. These poplars here, I put them in the ground. They were cuttings like this, and that was a few years ago. And now they are pretty massive and pretty stately. You know, you can't eat them, but they are a significant species, ecologically speaking, as I understand it. So, yeah, I'm not gonna mention too much about what I'm around, but show just simply what I'm up to right now. Interestingly enough, these are poplar logs down here, right? And a couple of them made some very tasty oyster mushrooms. But yeah, so this just looks like a bunch of sticks right here, and you'd be correct, but it's mostly stems from a select handful of plants like motherwort, Monarda fistulosa, and evening primrose. I think all of this might be Monarda fistulosa. But if you look sideways, they're tubes. Now, many of these I think will be too small for solitary bees to use as a nest. But I've been contemplating this year about solitary bees. I never seem to get around to making conventional bee boxes for them. And I, probably should do that. But failing that, I have all these stalks that I need to tidy up. I don't have to tidy them up, but I'm probably going to tidy them up, and ideally want to do something productive with them. So I've been testing out this year, cutting small sections of Monarda and threading them through this chicken wire here that's been here for a very long time, and it's protecting a little guild that I have growing on here that has quite a lot of elements, some of which don't survive year to year. But we got everbearing raspberries, we've got black elderberry. It's getting pretty tall now. I took quite a lot of cuttings from it this year. And then we have some other goofy things that I honestly can't remember putting here, but I suspect it must have been me. Where is it? Okay, so that bud there belongs to an apple. And then this here, this little twig, that's a mulberry. I don't know how that got there, but it is there. And in time, I suspect it will take and live well here. We also have, in this horrible overgrown area, a pawpaw, and that's its tip just there. But that got eaten down really nastily a couple winters ago, and it's come back. And this is also a mulberry I grew from a seed, but that's not what I'm trying to talk about. Where did the hens even go? What are you doing, girls? You gotta stay in frame. So down here is where I've been cutting stems from. And most of what's left is on the smaller side. I've just been cutting out the bigger stems and using those mostly, but just for the sake of demonstrating the principle, here's one stem that looks reasonably big. Obviously, the closer to the ground you get, the better. This is a seriously goofy video, but just for demonstration purposes of what I'm trying to do. Sorry for my horrible nails. So I believe one of the principles when it comes to making bee nesting boxes, one of the things you should focus on is ensuring that they're only open from one end, so that they're not parasitized. But what I've figured out, I don't know that I necessarily am the one that figured this out, and this is all dependent on whether or not the bees will even use a Monarda stem, I don't know. But if you cut them here, right, with this little ridge in the middle, this is kind of difficult one-handed, and then you look down the hole, you can't see through it because that ridge has a little like filter almost that stops things from going all the way through. So in theory, if this were actually big enough for a bee, which I suspect it isn't, that would be kind of cool because it comes sort of pre-built 2 slots to a stem cutting that you can just, you know, work into the fence. And, you know, it's a lot more productive than burning it, that's for sure. Of course, you could just compost them. I like to let them stick around. You never know, a little hummingbird might perch on that. Bit of an insane thing to wonder about, but that's just something I've been working on, and it's not particularly arduous. This time of year, it's very easy to overdo it and like injure yourself, so trying to make sure that doesn't happen. And I'll show something else I've been doing this year. They've got all these banana stems here too on this currant. They're all pretty small as well. Hey girls! But this is not going to look very good. Anyway, this blackberry has been girdled every year because it has this bucket over it, right? I put the bucket there to protect it, but ironically I think it just made it into like a hotel for voles. And so what I've done this year, and I think I posted about this with my little peach up on the hill there, so I've taken this abundance of burdocks and packed them around the base with the intention of making this a very uninviting little spot for voles. And of course you can get around that. It's my boy Jessup in his little paddock over there. You can get around that by using hardware cloth instead of chicken wire, or buckets, as the case may be. But yeah, it's worth exploring because chicken wire is kind of unsightly, and it does come with the annoyance of having to remove it at some point and repurpose it. So something to consider that I'm trying out. But just generally, I think the rabbits had a really rough winter, and they haven't done as much damage as they normally do. So that's pretty cool. And here's another little thing where you don't have to use chicken wire. Well, in this instance I actually used like some twisty ties, but I have a better example over here where I just put these stakes in the ground and then use some vines to kind of tension them together, and then did vertical and horizontal goldenrod stalks. And I believe they'll use goldenrod because if it's pithy, they'll hollow them out and stuff like that. But this is another option. And the fence itself is mostly just buckthorn. It's pretty old and needs updating all the time, but I think it provides some interesting novel habitat for different creatures. I really like just hopping a squat and looking at the fences during the growing season and all the ants that use this like a super highway. That's pretty cool. And this is a kiwi here, a hardy kiwi that I may regret planting, but yeah, this was the first garden I made of all my gardens. I'm not going to go into detail how I made it. Clearly I didn't do that good a job because I still have all kinds of weeds like creeping Charlie and cleavers that refuse to leave. But, you know, just burying it in leaves every year seems to yield something, and that's enough, really. There's lots more I could mention. Where did I drop my sword? There it is. Yeah, I do call it a sword. I really like this as a general brandishing instrument. You can see we've been having a lot of rain. It's this hole in the ground I dug out that I was intending to fill at some point, and now it's just wet and the box elder's growing out of it. Fair enough. And then some more here. Yeah, you can see the meadow is very much a place the chickens love this time of year. Won't catch them out here much in the summertime because it just gets hot and they'd rather stay down the hill there. But they're enjoying themselves, and there's so much natural cover for them out here. These pioneer plants, like what we're looking at here, is prickly ash, which is basically Szechuan peppercorns. It's an amazing host plant for different species of swallowtail. And there's grapes growing on it, which is also a great host plant, the native grapes. So these sorts of things I could not imagine spending my time removing. One, because it's really ecologically significant, and two, because it's really painful to handle. So, yeah. And then you get cheeky little white pines coming up in the meadow. Certainly not going to say no to them. It's a bit of a maze really, but it's super navigable for them because they're like half a foot tall or 1 foot tall. And then you get goofy things like this. Like this thicket here. There's definitely some elements of here that are horrible, like the European buckthorn. But you got a little ash, you got native junipers, you got prickly ash, and then right here, this is apple. This is an apple tree. It's 2 apple trees growing right next to each other. And one of them actually flowered and made apples last year. So that's pretty cool. And if you're a chicken, you really don't care what the apple looks like, how big it is. You just are glad it's an apple. So, lots to be done out here, but it's hard to know how much to bite off at any given time. Because if you try and reset an area and you don't properly transition it to something more productive, you're probably going to end up with something less productive than you started with. So, there's that. The open meadow. Really is a good idea to spend some time looking at different seedlings and so forth so that you know what you're looking at. Like that's a black walnut, a wonderful native food producing tree. Creates beautiful shade, obviously not when it's this size. Hi Babs! Looking very cute there, Babs. I call her the chainmail chicken because she looks like she's wearing chainmail. And she's also their leader, but she leads them into battle in chainmail. They're trying to go over there now. I don't like them going over there, so I'm gonna have to go do a little dance with them. Make sure that they don't wander too far into a zone of danger. But before I do that, I might as well point out some other things, like some nice ash trees, all this horrible invasive honeysuckle. What else? This area where I'm standing is yarrow, but you can't see it because it's herbaceous, and I've actually harvested the stalks and shook them out over a bunch of different spots. But then you come around the front here, and you can see this has been nibbled on. But that's an apple, right? Don't know who nibbled on you, mate. Who comes out here just to nibble on this one little apple, I wonder? But I know it's an apple because I know what an apple looks like, and I put this mulch here as a little bit of a yes and for this little seedling here. And they come up throughout the meadow. It's pretty interesting. Lots and lots of like crab apples and stuff. You wouldn't know were crab apples unless you had a lot of patience or just knew how to identify apples. There's another black walnut. Pearl was complaining. Pearl doesn't like leaving home very much. She would prefer it if everybody stayed within about 10 meters of the yard. I wish everyone were a bit more like Pearl, frankly. That would make things easier. Right there, Rand. Black walnut, black raspberries, horrible honeysuckle, and then this is also an apple, I believe. Right? That's quite a nice one, really. They often show up in little pairs. Not pairs as in pear trees, but like 2 of them together. I don't know why that is. It's kind of annoying. And then where I've been working on this hedgerow up here, we have this. And this is also an apple. It's a crab apple. I don't think it has any on it anymore, but they usually hold on for a long time. And then the chickens come up and snack on them. It's pretty cool. Obviously I had nothing to do with this. And it's here. So I think this is awesome. Lovely blossom tree. Saw my first hummingbird, I believe it was, yesterday. So that's pretty cool. And they like apple blossoms, which I would not have expected. Right, Dila? They're being pretty good. If I walk over here, they'll generally follow me. And that's the secret. You can't look at that. It's my secret. But over here I can show you. This is also an apple, right? It has red leaves. Right? I'm like 90% sure it's an apple. Obviously, I've never seen it flower because it's really small. But I believe it's an apple. I think it gets the rust and all. And then there's another one right here, see? So I'm guessing that was the same bird pooping out 2 separate apples. Maybe. Lovely red osier. Can't look at that. Secret. And then around here, I think there's another apple. I love this pine tree. They grow so quickly out here in the meadow. And then something always kills the top, which I believe is the white pine weevil that likes these fast-growing meadow pine, white pines. And I remember when the top broke off, I was like, what the heck happened here? Because this, I've been here a while, so I remember when this was a really small tree. And now it has like its own little ecosystem going on. And the chickens love it under here. This is a really cozy little rest spot for them. I suspect they'll come rest here in a minute. But yeah, there's a little apple here. And it goes on and on all through here. There's weird little apples, perennial ground cherries. You still get walnuts, but they're fewer and further between over here because we're getting further and further away from their mother tree, which is my favorite little black walnut right by the chicken coop. So these are all from that tree, and squirrels carrying the nuts out here and burying them in the field. You can see it's pretty old for how small it is because it has to make do with fighting with the grass. We got ash. Over here there's a ton of perennial physalis ground cherries. And the ones over here actually yield good fruit. Not just unspoilt fruit. Because the ones in my gardens that I dug up and moved there, they always seem to be infested with some kind of slug. But out here, they taste good and they look good. So that's cool. But I feel like if I came over here and started putting down loads of mulch, we'd just have the same problem. Very strange. Good gracious, what is that? Why is there just a big hole in the ground here? Was this a den? I don't know. Never seen this before. And wouldn't you know it, right next to it, cheeky little black walnut. We love to see it. I don't think they've actually ever been over here. It's a pretty spooky spot. But yeah, it's a pretty special time of year for them. I like to indulge their desire to do some wandering. The video's getting super long now, so I'll wrap it up here pretty quickly. I did put a little plum in over there, but then it got really droughty, so if it comes back, it'll be a miracle, because it barely had any roots on it when I moved it. And then this over here, again, 2 apples right next to each other. I should probably take those vines off you, hey? It's actually 3 apples, look at that. And I believe this is flowering now as well, so pretty marvelous. The woodlands, they're growing up strong here. I can't wait for them to get nice and dense. It's almost tempting to like coppice some of the trees, or like lay the branches down, like, you know, half cut through the stem and step it over so that it makes more of a thicket. But yeah, pretty stunning. I love this overcast weather. My allergies are going crazy, but you do what you can. Pearl's leaving, you can see in the back. She's like, screw this, guys. I don't even think this is safe. I don't think he knows where he's going. She's like C-3PO. Right? They're just following me, see, it's awesome. I love it. Alright, that's enough. That's enough. Chickens. Paige is looking right at me.